I have always believed that as much as it happened to me, because there were so many lessons in it, it's not actually my right to keep it to myself, because those lessons are ones that people can all learn from. And I hope as I share with you today, as much as I'm not speaking so much about gender-based violence, my crime was obviously a gender-based violence, but I want you also to try and think about your own stuff. We've all got stuff. We are all different. You guys who are younger will have different problems from what your parents and your teachers have. Some of you might have suffered major traumas. And I acknowledge that, and I'm sorry if that is your story. But some of you might just be having a so-called ordinary life, but you will have stuff that you fight against, stuff that you didn't choose. Obstacles, problems that come your way, even if it's just exams. And I hope as I share with you my story that was not of my choosing, that you will find something that you can liken it to in your own lives that's not of your choosing. And maybe some of the things that helped me overcome what happened to me, that made me look at what happened to me as actually a positive thing, might be something that you can take as well and look at your own stuff and say, actually, I'll be okay. That's what I hope for today. So it was back in 1994, when you guys weren't even around. I was living at that time in Port Elizabeth. Do any of you know PE? Some of you, okay. Port Elizabeth, you probably heard about, is kind of like a small city. It is a city, but it's one of those small towns. It's got a small town feel to it. Nothing really happens there. And I mean that in the nicest way, in that, certainly in those days, crime didn't happen there. And I remember when I used to travel here to Joburg for work, you'd brace yourself as soon as you got off the plane in Joburg, and you'd like be all anxious and, oh, this is where the crime is. As soon as you got on the plane to go home, you'd relax. Sorry, but that is how we saw it. And I say that because I think part of the reason that I was so easily a victim that night is because I thought it would never happen to me. And I know I'm speaking to men about a crime against a woman, but there are instances for all of us, boys and girl children and men and women, where crime might touch us anyway. And I think a lot of the times it's because we're just not aware that it might be us that it happens to. And I think a large portion of our valuing ourselves needs to be protecting ourselves too, and just being aware of where we are and what. And that, I must tell you, I was completely unaware. It was never going to happen to me. So I drove my car without locking my car doors. I parked on the street without looking around. I had to park on the street to get into my house. I didn't have a garage, so I parked that night outside, not really thinking. In fact, I was distracted. I turned to the passenger seat to get some things off the passenger seat when suddenly my car door opened. And I turned around, there was a man standing there with a knife in his hand. He put the knife at my throat and he just said to me, "Move over, else I'll kill you." I mean, this is the kind of thing that happens in movies. You know, you see it I'm like this in the movie. I just wait for the bad part to end. And you know, you've heard these things where people say, all people tell me you should have boxed him in the balls and pushed him out of the way and whatever. It's all very gung-ho when you're not in the situation yourself, but you also, I'm sure, hear that in a situation where there's a moment of like stress like that, there are three ways that a human being will naturally respond. One is fight, one is flight, run, and one is freeze. And I think the majority of people freeze. That's what I did. I didn't even process, I didn't really even think or react to what he was doing. In fact, I just moved to the passenger seat, and he was in the car driving it before I actually came to my senses. Now, just to give you some background, it came out later. The men who attacked me, who abducted and attacked me, were two white men. Franz de Toy, the elder one of the two, was 26 years old at the time. He was married with a 2-year-old child. His accomplice was Tiens Kruger, 19 years old. They had had a braai that night. And at this braai discussed going out to find a girl to rape and kill. This is the bad people we were talking about earlier on. There's some people who are just bad. I don't know what other people would think that was what you wanted to do on a Friday night, but they did. And there were other girls whose cars they had tried to get into, but those girls had locked their doors, so I know that if I'd been more aware, this wouldn't be my story, but it is my story. I sat there as quietly as I could. I tried to not make them angry. They said to me, "We just want to use your car, we're not going to hurt you," so I wanted to believe that. That's what I believed. But I noticed they were driving down the beachfront road of PE, out around past where the university is, and into a stretch of coastline, which is, it's kind of like a rocky, bushy area. People don't really go there. There are no streetlights, no buildings, just a dark area of bush.